Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for this update video on missing Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen. And I'm very sad to be bringing you this update. I'd hoped that Vanessa had just taken off in an effort to get some space and perspective. I had hoped she was safe somewhere and she would rejoin her family and move on with her life when she was ready. Sadly, the life of Vanessa Guillen will not go on. She won't see her mother and sister again. She was murdered. Let's start from the beginning. On April 22nd, the day Vanessa went missing, she was seen at Fort Hood in an arms room she was working at that day. A witness stated that Vanessa had left that arms room to visit another arms room at a different location on base in order to confirm serial numbers on some equipment. The arms room she was going to was being controlled by Specialist Aaron Robinson. Vanessa left behind her U.S. Army identification, her bank card, and her keys, and these items were still in the arms room when it was locked up for the evening. SPC Aaron Robinson confirmed that Vanessa had visited his arms room that day. He said she'd read him some serial numbers for equipment, and afterward he gave her a serial number and paperwork for a .50 caliber machine gun which needed to be serviced. He claimed she left the room and he was under the impression that she was next headed to the motor pool. However, those working at the motor pool that day who were expecting Vanessa to arrive with the gun and paperwork said she never showed up. Upon review of Vanessa Guillen's cell phone records, it was discovered that the last outgoing message on her phone was to Aaron Robinson. He claimed that he had texted her to let her know he was in the arms room before she arrived, but he was widely considered to be one of the last people to see Vanessa before she disappeared. When questioned about his whereabouts the evening of the 22nd, Aaron claimed that after he finished with work, he went home to an off-post residence. Now, in some sources, it just says an off-post residence. In some sources, it says an off-post residence that he shared with his girlfriend, a civilian named Cecily Aguilar. He also claimed that he was at home all evening until he left at 6:30 the morning of the 23rd to travel to Fort Hood to complete some sort of army training on a government computer. The next month, on May 18th, police interviewed witnesses at Fort Hood who claimed they had seen SPC Aaron Robinson pulling a large tough box or pelican box with wheels out of the arms room where Vanessa was last seen. He loaded it into his vehicle and drove away. Now, a tough box is pretty much just like a plastic storage container, but it's supposedly more durable than your run-of-the-mill storage totes, and they can sometimes have wheels and a handle. And these witnesses said that the box appeared to be very heavy and that Robinson was struggling to get it into his car. The next day, Robinson allowed authorities to perform a UFED extraction on his cell phone. Now, this is done with a device, usually like a Celebrite, and it'll pull everything off the phone. Text messages, pictures, GPS locations, etc. And through this UFED extraction, it was revealed that Robinson had called his girlfriend, Cecily, several times on the evening of the 22nd and in the early morning of the 23rd. Finding this odd, since Robinson had claimed to be at home with his girlfriend all night until 6:30 a.m., police asked Cecily Aguilar why her boyfriend might be calling her so many times if they were together. She claimed that she'd misplaced her phone and he was calling to make it ring so that she could find her phone, but this didn't add up either since some of these calls were several minutes in length. Once faced with these inconsistencies, Aguilar changed her story and said she had not, in fact, been home all night, and that she liked to take long drives sometimes when she was feeling stressed out to cope. She then claimed that Robinson had still been with her. On the night of the 22nd, however, they had taken a long drive together to a park in Belton, Texas to look at the stars, and then they returned home where they remained for the rest of the evening. So authorities examined the GPS locations on Aaron Robinson's cell phone, and they found out that at approximately 1:59 in the morning, On the 23rd, Robinson was in the vicinity of FM 436 and West Main Street in Belton, Texas, on or around a bridge. He was then tracked going north along the Leon River. It appears he remained in this area for roughly 2 hours. His girlfriend, Cicely's phone showed the same travel pattern. Based on this data, the Bell County Sheriff's Office and the Texas Rangers searched the Leon River site on June 21st. There they discovered what appeared to be the burned remains of a plastic tote and a burn site with disturbed earth. The soil beneath the burn site was remarkably softer and damper than the soil found at similar depths around the site, and it also had the scent of decomposition. No remains were found, however, and the investigation continued. Sadly, only 6 days later, contractors who were working along a fence located adjacent to the Leon River found human remains. Tim Miller, who was working in the area with Texas EcoSearch, said that the remains appeared to have lime, mixed up concrete, and dirt sprinkled over them. And then everything snowballed from there. Cicely Aguilar was interviewed again the evening of June 30th at 8:30 p.m. and she spilled the beans. She admitted that her boyfriend, Aaron Robinson, told her on April 22nd that he had bludgeoned a female soldier to death by striking her on the head with a hammer multiple times in his arms room at Fort Hood. He then placed her in that tough box, rolled it to his car, and left Fort Hood. That evening, Robinson picked up Aguilar from her job at a gas station and drove her out to the Leon River, where she claims the plastic tough box with wheels was already waiting. He walked over to the box and opened it, showing her Vanessa dead inside. According to Cicely Aguilar, in order to make it easier to dispose of the body, both she and Robinson dismembered the body of Vanessa Guillen using a hatchet or a machete-type sword. At first, they tried to burn her body, but they abandoned that plan when it was taking too long, and apparently the fire and the smoke and everything was reaching over the trees. It was as high as 15 feet, so they were afraid somebody would see it. So they placed the remains, what was left of Vanessa Guillen, into 3 separate holes, and then they left. They returned to the site a few days later on April 26th, armed with gloves, hairnets, and concrete that apparently Cicely Aguilar had purchased from someone on Facebook. They dug up Vanessa's remains, attempted to break them up again, and then burned them again, along with their hairnets and gloves. They then placed what was left with the concrete in the same 3 holes, and then they went back home and burned their clothes. Now, at the end of June, at the time when Cicely Aguilar is talking to the police, Aaron Robinson was supposed to have been confined at his room in Fort Hood, and he had no idea that Cicely was talking to the police. It appears that law enforcement had Aguilar call Robinson while they listened, and he didn't deny anything that they had done to Vanessa and her body. He also texted Cicely news articles that talked about the discovery of human remains. During a phone call later, he said to his girlfriend Cicely, "Baby, they found the pieces. They found the pieces." Aaron Robinson, while he was a suspect in somebody's disappearance and was supposedly kept in his room, he managed to get off of Fort Hood on Tuesday, June 30th, and when officials finally tracked him down walking on East Rancier Ave in Guillen on July 2nd on foot and wearing only a pair of shorts, he allegedly took his own life with a handgun. His girlfriend, Cicely Aguilar, is currently being held at the Bell County Jail. She faces up to 20 years in prison and a maximum fine of $250,000. She's been charged in a federal court claiming that she unlawfully and willfully helped Robinson in a conspiracy to corruptly alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal an object, or attempts to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding. So basically it means they messed with evidence purposely so that if it ever came down to a court case or, something to do with the legal system, those things wouldn't be able to be used. It also appears that since the murder was committed at Fort Hood, but the actual murderer is dead, the only person left to be prosecuted is Cicely Aguilar, and the U.S. Army should really, in my opinion, have nothing to do with it. But while we're talking about the military and how they might view something like this, Let's go to Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Betsy Scholler, who's a senior lecturer at the University of Wisconsin. She was quite vocal on social media, telling off people who were expressing their concern and sadness over the conclusion of this horrible case. Her comment was actually posted under a story titled, "Fort Hood Soldier Vanessa Guillen Bludgeoned to Death While on Duty on Base," family attorney says. And Betsy's comment was pretty simple and straightforward and savage. She said, quote, "You guys are kidding, right? Sexual harassment is the price of admission for women into the good old boy club. If you're gonna cry like a snowflake about it, you're gonna pay the price." Now, I posted this on Twitter and I've gotten mixed reviews or mixed feelings, I guess. For the most part, people think that this is disgusting. There's some people who say, well, maybe this happened to Betsy Scholler at some point in her military career, and that's why she's saying this. And, like, I get that. I get it. But at the same time, it doesn't really change the fact that I feel this was a completely disgusting statement to make, and it really does kind of show the complicity of people in power that allow it to continue. Not only as somebody who's high ranking in the military, but as a woman. Betsy Scholler said something that essentially made it okay to be sexually harassed in the military, because that's your price of admission. That's what you have to do, and that's what you have to put up with, and that's what you have to tolerate if you want to defend and protect your country. And then the last sentence, if you're going to cry like a snowflake about it, you're going to pay the price, which in my opinion makes it sound like she's saying, yeah, Vanessa Guillen got killed, but, you know, she cried like a snowflake, so she paid the price of standing up for herself and not wanting to be sexually harassed at her workplace. So a military veteran, fellow female soldier who's probably been there and seen it all, upon finding out that Vanessa Guillen faced instances of harassment while under the care of the U.S. Army, upon finding out that Vanessa was then beaten to death with a hammer, cut up into pieces, burned, and then thrown into the ground mixed with cement, Betsy's response wasn't one of sisterhood or even sorrow that women face these kinds of challenges in the military. Her response was pretty much, toughen up, Buttercup. This is the way it is, and you need to accept that you will always be disrespected, always be put in danger, and made to feel less than if you want to be in the military. And then if you have a problem with it, you need to accept that you'll be threatened and maybe even killed. That's the price of admission into the boys' club. This is a woman who teaches young people. This is a woman who's been photographed meeting First Lady Michelle Obama. This is a woman who apparently has a family and daughters of her own. I mean, I don't know if she has daughters, but her profile picture makes it appear as if she's standing with a man about her age and some younger children that could be her daughters, it could be her nieces. I don't know, but she's got young children in her life that might look up to her. There's now a Change.org petition to remove Betsy Scholler from her position at the university, which was started by a student at the university who said, quote, "I speak on behalf of my fellow UWM students, staff, and community partners when I say that we want to see Professor Scholler terminated from UW Milwaukee staff. As a woman and a student at UWM, I feel unsafe knowing that we have professors who think the sexual assault of women serving in the military is justified. Sexual assault is not a joke. Rape is not a consequence. There is not a price of admission for a woman to join the military. Vanessa Guillen was raped and murdered by a junior soldier on base. UWM instructor and retired Air Force Colonel Betsy Scholler has publicly stated she deserved to be assaulted." And yeah, I agree. I agree with these words. I stand firmly on the side of freedom of speech. There is a difference between freedom of speech and condoning things that shouldn't be condoned. People, everybody, men, women, children, people of all colors, people of all ages, people of all sexual preferences, what have you, every single person in this world should feel comfortable to join the military or go to a school or join a club or something without feeling that they have to sacrifice their self-worth, their dignity in order to join that school, club, armed forces, career, what have you. When you are a person who has some influence, you're allowed to have your freedom of speech just like everybody else, but you need to be a little bit more responsible because not everybody knows your intentions. Not everybody knows your thought process. So when you say something and sum everything like that up in 2 sentences that seem very savage and very cold and very like, kind of like she deserved it. Even if you meant something else, there's no way that young people reading that would know. And one of 2 things is going to happen. Young people reading that are going to say, this is disgusting and should never have been said. Or they're going to say, well, I do want to, join the armed forces. I really want to be in the Army. I really want to be in the Marines. But is that the price of admission? Is that something I just have to deal with? Is that something I just have to accept because this high-ranking official who has been in the armed forces and is a woman and has apparently been successful with that career, she says it's okay. And maybe if she looked the other way, and maybe if she sacrificed her self-worth, and maybe if she allowed somebody to hurt her or do something to her that she wasn't comfortable with, but now as a result she's successful and she's where she wants to be in her life and career, maybe that is the price of admission. And that's problematic thinking, and that's dangerous, especially for young people. So that's my stance on it. You can sign the petition, you don't have to. You can agree with her, you can not agree with her, but that's my position. And while we're talking about problematic women who look the other way, let's talk a little bit more about Cecily Aguilar, or Cicely Aguilar. I don't know how you say her name. I know there are going to be people who think what she did isn't that bad, and who think 20 years behind bars is a lot of punishment for just going along with your boyfriend. Some might even suggest that she's a victim herself, manipulated by Aaron Robinson. And if you remember, Patrick Frazee, the man who murdered his girlfriend, the mother of his toddler daughter, Kelsey Barrett, this case reminds me a lot of that. Patrick Frazee had this girlfriend on the side who helped him clean up the mess afterwards, and who even knew what he was planning to do before he did it. This case is a lot like that, because it looks like Cicely was either previously or currently married to another soldier that had been stationed at Fort Hood at some point. And this man's name was Keon Aguilar. Now, Cicely's Facebook page indicates she began a new relationship in February of 2020, and we believe that she's referring to her relationship with Aaron Robinson. She does have a previous criminal record for some small things, such as removing or concealing a price tag. I didn't even know that was that big of a deal, honestly. Getting pulled over for speeding without car insurance, etc. However, what is more telling when trying to figure out what sort of woman Cicely was is her social media. Her Instagram is pretty much just a bunch of selfies, but what the captions read tell a very disturbing story. Remember, Vanessa went missing on April 22nd, and all of this stuff that I'm about to show and tell you, Cicely posted these things after this. After she helped her boyfriend chop up the body of a woman, burn it, bury it, she posted this stuff after that. So this picture is an Instagram post from April 24th, and it reads, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Another picture from this same day, and it seems like from this same photo shoot, says, "The most dangerous woman of all is the one who refuses to rely on you to save her, because she was never a damsel in distress." And then another one says, "She was born in fire, fierce to melt the iron. You fell in love with a woman who knows how to tame the dragon. She's the Targaryen of her own soul." On May 1st, she posted this picture, and here is the caption, "I loved her, the dark side of her. Any girl can play innocent, but her demons are what drove me wild. Her secrets, her pain she masks with laughter, the darkness that she tries so hard to hide. That's what made me fall for her." So she's posting basically from like the viewpoint of another person who's falling in love with her, I believe. And she's basically saying like she's this dark, twisted, like supervillain, badass bitch, like just, hit a body and burned it, and now I'm feeling powerful and my demons are driving men wild. That's my opinion. Don't come for me. She posted another picture on May 1st with the caption, "He showed her the darkest part of him. She said, 'Black is my favorite color.' Heart emoji." This one was the most disturbing, literally, because she's talking about Aaron Robinson. He showed her the darkest part of him. He showed her he was a murderer and a crazy person. And then she said, "Black is my favorite color, heart emoji. I really think a black heart emoji after that would have been more appropriate in my opinion, but she put 2 pink heart emojis, which really, it didn't contrast well with her pretend badassery, but that's just my opinion. Another one on May 1st with the caption, "I will not have you without the darkness that hides within you. I will not let you have me without the madness that makes me. If our demons cannot dance, neither can we." Once again, she imagines herself and Aaron Robinson to be some sort of second string Bonnie and Clyde. "I will not have you without the darkness that hides within you. I won't let you have me without the madness that makes me. If our demons can't dance, neither can we." So she's saying like, you're a murderer and I'm crazy, and let's just dance with our demons and embrace this about ourselves, this darkness inside of us. And it's not real. I don't think that she's really this insane, crazy person who's a killer inside, but she thinks it's kind of sexy. She thinks it's kind of interesting and dangerous and walking on the edge and why do good girls like bad boys kind of thing. And she's embracing it, which is really just as bad as if she had been that way all her life. We've talked about serial killer couples on this channel before. We've talked about serial killers who are enabled by their female companions. She's no better than Karla Homolka, in my opinion. And on May 22nd, she posted this picture with the caption, "Fall in love with who you are becoming and the world will adjust." Once again, in my opinion, this is pretty much saying like, oh, you're becoming a crazy psychopath. You need to embrace that and everybody else will just one day come to accept it. Again, on May 22nd, you can't break something that God is protecting. I don't know if she was pulling a Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, like we were given this message that we needed to do these illegal, horrible things to other people, and that's God's will, so God's protecting this, so you can't, break us up, or you can't get us, you will never catch us. I don't know. But on May 25th, she posted this with the caption, "People who fight fire with fire end up with the ashes of their own integrity." That's very interesting. It's very interesting. And you may say, well, hey, give her a break. Give Cicely a break. She helped the police and told them what had happened. Yeah, after she lied to the police several times and gave her murdering boyfriend an alibi. If Vanessa's remains hadn't been found, the two of them would have kept on lying and letting their demons dance together in the ashes of their integrity. And let's not forget, it's not as if Cicely would have had no feelings about Vanessa, one way or the other. She said when she saw the dead woman in the box, she recognized Vanessa. And Cicely was dating Robinson, who was either trying to get in a relationship with Vanessa or had been pressuring her to be with him, allegedly, while he was living with and sleeping with Cicely. Cicely said that she recognized Vanessa. Why would she recognize Vanessa? Could it be because she was jealous of this young woman that worked at Fort Hood with her boyfriend? Could it be because she'd already stalked her on social media to see what was so good about Vanessa Guillen to make Robinson want her so badly? According to Aguilar, she knew Vanessa because allegedly Vanessa had threatened to expose Robinson for having an affair with Cicely Aguilar, who was married to another soldier. And we're supposed to believe that Aaron Robinson killed Vanessa for this, his fear of being exposed for doing something that people do every single day. I don't really buy it at all. I mean, people in the military, we talked about this last time in the initial Vanessa Guillen video, people in the military do bad things all the time and hardly ever get into trouble, ever. So what would he think that his life was going to be over because he was having an affair with a married woman who I don't even think she was living with her husband at the time. They may have been estranged. In my opinion, I think Aaron Robinson was sexually harassing Vanessa Guillen, and that she threatened to expose him for that, or maybe she told some of her friends on base that he was doing it to her, and it had gotten back to him that she was telling people, and he didn't want her to tell anybody else. Additionally, although Cicely worked at a gas station, it also appears she made some money on the side offering to sell pictures of her feet to the highest bidder. In March, she posted on Twitter that she was looking for a real sugar daddy who didn't expect her to spend her money on him in any way. That is a sugar daddy. A sugar daddy doesn't expect you to spend your money on him in any way. So you're not looking for a real sugar daddy, you're just looking for a sugar daddy. And she wanted everyone to know that she uses the Cash App and to only DM her if they were really interested. So on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, family attorney Natalie Quam said that the CID had told her and Vanessa's family that Vanessa had discovered Aaron was seeing Cicely, and that since Cicely was married to a soldier, this was against the rules, and that Vanessa would have to report it. To which Aaron responded, "You aren't going to ruin my career," and he grabbed the closest thing he could find, which was a hammer, and began hitting her with it. When she didn't immediately go down, he kept hitting her in that armory room, which resulted in the entire room being covered in blood. He then put her in that box, left her there at Fort Hood in the box, went home, came back around 6 p.m. to retrieve the box. He then drove the box to the river, where he decided it was too big of a job to do himself, so he called Cicely and told her what happened and that he needed her help to bury Vanessa, and she was like, all right, cool. Then they at first tried to burn the body. They were having a hard time, so they took the machete to make the body pieces smaller. They dug the shallow graves, they put pieces in the holes, put the cement on top. When they left, they threw the machete, hammer, and Vanessa's phone out of the window as they were driving. And this apparently all happened between 1 and 4 a.m. And this was right around the time that Vanessa's sister, Myra, was arriving on base to look for Vanessa. And Myra actually said that she'd met Aaron Robinson while she was searching for her sister, and he laughed in her face. She said, quote, "I met him not knowing that he had something to do with it. I felt something was telling me that he did something, and I wasn't wrong, apparently. He still had the nerve that day to laugh in my face, and apparently now he kills himself. Why? I don't know. But whoever is responsible has to pay." So the family attorney, Natalie Quam, she doesn't really believe the story the Army is telling, and to be honest, neither do I. Now, they claim that Aaron Robinson killed Vanessa between 10:23 and 11:13 in the morning in that room at Fort Hood, but it seems highly unlikely that he would have had enough time to commit the murder and then clean up that extreme amount of blood that would have been all over the room. Natalie asked the CID, how did none of this come up on the CCTV? How did no one walk in at any time during the crime or the following cleanup? How did no one hear her screaming from the armory room as she was being bludgeoned by a hammer? Natalie also questioned how the Army could have heard from eyewitnesses who'd seen Robinson going to his car with this Pelican case, struggling under the weight of it, testimony that certainly would have stood out as suspicious on the same day that Vanessa Guillen disappeared, considering he was likely the last person who saw her that day, but they didn't issue a warrant for his arrest at that point. They brought in a well-known polygraph technician. Robinson refused to take a polygraph, but then the polygrapher interviewed Robinson and said he was absolutely lying. And they didn't even really confine him to his room, as was reported, obviously, because he escaped. But they simply told him that due to COVID, he couldn't go often on base, and he would also be looked into for the allegations of the affair. Even after the Army knew he was most likely involved and they'd made it clear to him that he couldn't leave the base, he was somehow able to leave Fort Hood anyways on foot, and they found him 2 hours later, and that's when he shot himself before they could arrest him conveniently. The Army claims it was his own personal gun, but no one can really say where he got it from or how he was allowed to retrieve it from Fort Hood or from his room and leave with it while he was supposed to not be leaving at all. And to go back to the timeline, the 3 witnesses, the eyewitnesses who previously said that they'd seen Vanessa between 12:30 and 1 p.m. have now apparently changed their story to support the official CID timeline, which has Aaron Robinson murdering her much earlier than that. So Vanessa's family has called for a congressional investigation into her disappearance and ultimately her murder. They believe that there's things the Army are hiding or covering up in order to kind of conceal the fact that that they looked the other way for months. Vanessa's younger sister, Lupe, called the Army out during a press conference, saying they lied to our faces every single day. How can this happen on a military base while she was on duty? And Domingo Garcia, the national president of the League of the United Latin American Citizens, said, quote, "There's cameras everywhere, so it's really impossible for her to disappear there from the largest military base in the United States without anyone knowing or finding out." Since Vanessa's disappearance, other Latina soldiers have come forward to say that they too have been the victims of sexual misconduct in the armed forces. So the LULAC is asking all women, especially Latina women and their families, to not enlist in the Army until there are assurances that these women will be protected and cared for while they serve this country. Even after all this came out, the Army has still climbed up on that hill that nothing uncouth happened to Vanessa Guillen, and they apparently are ready to die on it. On Thursday, Fort Hood officials made the statement that there's no credible information that Specialist Robinson sexually harassed Vanessa Guillen. It's a very convenient position for the Army to take because if there's no prior issues with the harassment between Robinson and Vanessa, this would just be a case of a rogue soldier who killed another soldier, and it would really have nothing to do with the Army. That's not my opinion, but that's legally their standpoint. So if there was an instance of Vanessa being harassed by Aaron Robinson in the past and the Army looked the other way on those instances of harassment, it shows a pattern of behavior that, had the Army stepped in, it might have been stopped and Vanessa might still be alive. And we talked about this in the first video, the times that Vanessa had been harassed while at Fort Hood, and there was one time where she was in the shower and then a man, one of her superiors, came in and kind of like was watching her shower and wouldn't leave. And we do believe that was Aaron Robinson. That's what's kind of believed at this point. And even though he wasn't her direct superior, he was still higher rank than her, which in the Army makes that her superior. I do agree with Natalie Kwam. If the way the event went down is accurate, there would be no way that Robinson would have been able to clean out that room in 43 minutes, at least not if he was doing it alone. Someone would have heard her crying out as she was being killed. Someone could have walked into that room at any time during that 43-minute period. Many believe that Robinson did not clean up this mess. They believed that the higher-ups walked into the armory, saw the blood, and covered it up for him. It also turns out that Vanessa wasn't even scheduled to work that day. Someone, another superior, called her in that morning, and they've ruled that person out as Aaron Robinson. So it was not Aaron Robinson who made that call. So why was she called in that day? Who made the call to bring Vanessa to Fort Hood on the day that she would end up alone in an armory room with a man who would go on to take her life and who would allegedly have enough privacy and time to complete this task in peace? How was her body just sitting there at Fort Hood for hours in a Pelican case and not discovered by anyone? No one saw anything. No one heard anything. The timeline doesn't add up. The situation doesn't make any sense. Natalie Kwam believes that the whole thing was premeditated. There's no towels or cleaning supplies that are kept in the armory rooms. Robinson would have had to have killed Vanessa and then gone out to get these cleaning supplies, so he would have been seen on CCTV, most likely with blood on him, or he would have had to have already had these cleaning supplies in the armory room, meaning that he knew exactly what he was planning to do to Vanessa that day, which makes the whole story about Vanessa confronting him and Robinson making a split-second decision to kill her because he wasn't going to have his career ruined. It makes that a lie. And if he had to leave the room after killing her in order to get the cleaning supplies, nobody would have gone into the armory room at any time while he was gone or seen him, you know, kind of like with blood on him, getting cleaning supplies and going back into that room. And if he was by himself trying to clean up the amount of blood that would have resulted from what they say happened to Vanessa, it would have taken much longer than 43 minutes. Natalie believes that whoever called Vanessa into work that day did so at the request of Aaron Robinson. So this person was complicit or working with Aaron Robinson to get Vanessa there so that she could be killed. Allegedly. The investigation was completely flawed and half-assed to begin with. No one looked at Vanessa's text messages when she went missing, even though they allegedly said they did. This is bigger than Aaron Robinson and Cicely Aguilar. This reminds me a lot of the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation, where we, as the general public, were expected to believe that the cameras in the jail just stopped working, and then the guards just fell asleep on the job, and then this whole perfect series of events had to happen in order for Epstein to, do what he allegedly didn't do in that jail cell. The hammer that Aaron Robinson allegedly used to kill Vanessa from that armory room, it obviously disappeared after Robinson used it, because he says he threw it out the window. But it's protocol for every weapon in each room to be checked and accounted for at the end of the day. So that hammer would obviously have been missing, and the Army claims, yeah, they knew it was missing, and they questioned Robinson about it, and he admitted that he lost it. So it was all good. But then that was it. There was no repercussions. There was no punishment for him losing this hammer. And apparently there weren't even any questions about why a soldier, Vanessa Guillen, and this hammer would go missing on the very same day, in the very same room, in the presence of the very same man. Additionally, there's supposed to be checks every day on base where each soldier needs to be accounted for. But that day, the 22nd, at the 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. check, it was reported that there were no soldiers missing. Well, obviously, at that time, if we believe the Army's account of events, Vanessa was already dead and in a box, in a pelican box. And so obviously Natalie Quaham, the family's attorney, she tells the Army, like, that's obviously very suspicious to tell us that Vanessa would have been already dead and missing by that time, but your soldier who's doing the checks said no one was missing. And the Army was like, no, it's not suspicious, because the guy who does the checks, he admitted that he's always lazy and he always performs lazy checks. He said that he told everyone that he checked Vanessa's room and she was present at the time of the check, but he actually didn't even check her room, and she may not have been there. He didn't know because he didn't check. He just said she was there. And this isn't weird or suspicious, because he's just always bad at his job. So here's my opinion on all of this. I don't believe the whole story about Robinson killing her last minute because he was afraid she was gonna go to the Army about him having an affair with Cicely Aguilar. I'm sure Cicely's own husband probably wouldn't even cared about that. Due to what facts and evidence we have, I think it's a much more plausible theory. And I'm not saying this is what happened. This is just what I think happened allegedly. But Natalie Quaham, the lawyer of Vanessa Guillen's family, claimed that Vanessa's family said Vanessa was planning to file a harassment suit against Robinson the day after she was killed. What I think happened, because he was the last text on her phone before she died, and he said, oh no, I was just telling her I was in the room. Like, why would you have to tell her you were in the room? There's a schedule that everyone has, and you can see written in who's in what room or controlling what room, so that's a lie. But what I think happened was he found out. She probably told somebody that she thought she could trust, but probably couldn't. And this person got it back to Robinson that she was planning to file these charges or file harassment complaints against him. So he texted her, maybe under the guise of having something for her that she needed to get, or maybe even to say like, hey, let's, talk. Maybe we can figure this out. And he planned to bring her in that day because she wasn't working, and that's why she made the plan to file the harassment charges the next day, because that day she was working and the day before she wasn't supposed to, but she got called in that day. Allegedly, I think he had one of his buddies also, at his same rank, call Vanessa, have her come in, maybe stand guard. There definitely were people who helped him do this and who helped him cover it up. There's no way he was this lone wolf, just a rogue soldier, going crazy and killing people on the spur of the moment because of some stupid extramarital affair. I also think that Cicely knew about it before that day. I think that he probably told her what he was doing and told her to be ready, like, we're gonna go on this day at this time, be ready because I'm gonna need your help. So in my opinion, don't come for me. Allegedly, that's what happened. It's more likely than the stupid story that the Army's telling us, and I don't even know how they would know that, because they claim that when they were in the room together, Vanessa and Aaron, Vanessa was like, I'm gonna report you for this affair of this woman that I saw on your phone who I know. Oh, that's the story, by the way. Vanessa somehow managed to get Aaron Robinson's phone, saw pictures, I guess, in texts from Sicily, and then was like, oh no, I'm going to the army with this. I can't believe you're having a relationship with a woman who's married. And that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when you think about who Vanessa was. She doesn't seem like the meddling type. It doesn't make sense at all why that would provoke such an irrational response to just bash somebody over the head with a hammer. And I do think it's very convenient that Aaron Robinson, when he was finally approached by authorities, just, took his own life, because dead men tell no tales, do they? They also don't refute official stories from the army. So it's just my opinion. My opinion, don't come for me. Once again, we can't look at an entire Army, Navy, Marines thing and say everybody's bad because there's some bad apples. It just seems like there's a lot of bad apples coming out lately, including this Betsy lady who, like I said, I know you guys have some excuses for it and you have some justifications, but that's exactly what it is. It's excuses and it's justifications, and we really need to stop allowing things from people's pasts to excuse what they do today, if that makes sense. Because there's probably a lot of people in this world who've had traumatic and horrible things happening to them in their past. I'm sure many more than we even know. And these people don't go on to condone, support, or defend similar bad behavior to what happened to them. And if they do that, it's not healthy, it's not right, and they still need to be held accountable for that. Somebody has to tell them it's not healthy and right, and somebody has to tell them loudly and publicly so all the young people looking at what they're saying knows that's not healthy and it's not right. And you don't need to degrade yourself or allow somebody to degrade you to become a soldier if it's your dream and your passion to become a soldier. You deserve respect as a person. You deserve love and compassion. You deserve help to get you to achieve your goals. You don't have to let somebody hurt you or abuse you or make you feel ashamed or put you in a place that you're not comfortable with so that you can do something that you've worked hard to do. Period. I'm sorry. If we're going to have voices in the world that are loud and proud, let them be saying things that make a difference for the better in the world, not yelling things that lead young people to believe things that are wrong are not wrong. If that makes sense? Does that make sense? Okay, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this update. It's a crazy case. I'm going to keep an eye on it and see what happens. I am very interested in finding out if the Army does come forward with some new evidence. I know that there's CCTV on that base, and they probably have Robinson on that base, on that CCTV several times if he had to walk in and out of the room while cleaning it. They definitely know more than they're letting on, but I'm going to keep an eye on it and see what happens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, like, share, and comment. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you're subscribed and YouTube didn't unsubscribe you because that's been happening a lot too. And follow me on my social media, Twitter and Instagram. The links are in the description box. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say I Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's killing you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood